Video games where you play as law enforcement aren't hard to come by. Each of us has controlled numerous protagonists that carry a badge. It's sort of the perfect profession to explain why the player has to take out a bunch of bad guys. Max Payne, Jack Slate, Wei Shen, all of them cops that dispatch justice one bullet at a time. But by any real-world metric, many of these guys are officers in name only. They're action movie cops. They don't read Miranda rights or worry about collateral damage. They're renegades that don't play by the rules because rules aren't fun. And yeah, of course, games are first and foremost meant to be fun. But there was once a series that tried to combine the realism of police procedure with the novelty of interactive entertainment. The Police Quest games started in 1987 as a quadrilogy of point-and-click adventures casting you as a beat cop or detective. They were unique in that they attempted to emulate some of the day-to-day operations of actual police work, requiring the player to act with professionalism and follow certain procedures, like securing crime scenes or even handing in paperwork. This adherence to realism helped differentiate Police Quest from its contemporaries, and the success of these early titles would lead to a fifth spin-off entry, Police Quest SWAT, released in 1995. Heavily utilizing full-motion video, it continued with the well-established point-and-click formula, though wasn't as well-received as its predecessors. It would then get a direct sequel, Police Quest SWAT 2, in '98, marking a genre departure for the franchise, being a real-time tactics game that had the player ordering units from an isometric perspective. I actually have fond memories of SWAT 2. I played it on my dad's laptop as a kid, though I haven't gone back to it in my adult years, so I don't know if it holds up. SWAT 3 would come out a year later, dropping Police Quest from its name entirely. Once again, switching genres, possibly inspired by another successful series about an elite team of operators, SWAT 3 was a first-person tactical shooter. You led a 5-man squad into dangerous situations with an emphasis on saving civilians and arresting suspects rather than shooting them on sight. Most people who know of this series would agree this is where SWAT finally found its identity. It was widely praised by critics and players alike. But depending on who you ask, the follow-up was even better. Developed by Irrational Games, the studio that would go on to make BioShock, 2005's SWAT 4 is probably the most well-known of this law enforcement franchise, and it is still great. I played it for the first time about 5 years ago, sometime after it was added to GOG, and it's become one of those classics I get an urge to replay at least once a year. It stands out as so unique next to your usual FPS. You can't just take out every perp you find, as the game will penalize you for unauthorized force. This makes each suspect encounter a nervous standoff as you watch how they react, knowing that one stray bullet can end your life, with anxiousness further increased by the presence of panicked civilians. There's an inherent tension to every second spent clearing rooms, and the randomized placements and behaviors of NPCs make every mission highly replayable and allow them to maintain that tension with each revisit. The game has its rough edges, namely where the AI is concerned. There can be some hard swings of competence on both sides, but SWAT 4 still holds up really well. If you have a spare $10 laying around and are looking for a challenging, slower-paced shooter without the quick scopes and slide canceling, I absolutely recommend it. SWAT 4 would get an expansion, but afterwards the series just sort of sputtered along, with its final releases being a PSP title and a couple mobile exclusives. Sierra Entertainment, who owned the Police Quest IP, would close their doors in 2008. The brand would later be purchased by Activision, and since Activision doesn't care about anything that doesn't start with the words Call of Duty, the franchise seems destined to rot away in Bobby Kotick's vault until the end of time. Which sucks, because there really hasn't been anything similar to fill the void. Rainbow Six was the closest, but its original games weren't nearly as accessible, requiring a lot more planning and team management, and in modern times, Siege dominates as a PvP-focused live service, and that's where Team Rainbow is going to stay for a good long while. Aside from replaying SWAT 4 whenever I got a hankering for a more grounded FPS, there wasn't anything else that properly filled that flashbang-shaped hole in my heart. Then I played Ready or Not. Dan! Got him.
Doors open on the left, doors open on the left, on that left threshold right there.
Not to be confused with the fun horror comedy of the same name, Ready or Not is 100% the SWAT sequel fans have wanted for years. A spiritual successor that captures the exact feel of that classic while making some convenient quality of life improvements. Ready or Not has been in early access for a couple years now, and still is at the time I'm making this video, but it already has plenty of content and polish, putting it above many bigger AAA projects. In the last couple months, it's become one of my go-tos. I've played it solo, I've bought multiple copies for friends so I had a full squad to run with, I've even spent a bunch of time playing with strangers in the official Ready or Not Discord. I really like this game. The core gunplay itself is tight and satisfying. There's a healthy selection of ARs, SMGs, shotguns, and sidearms to equip, with a few non-lethal options for those that want to keep engagements as clean as possible, all of which can be further customized with attachments such as sights or silencers. We all know that firearms are powerful tools, and you feel their power with each trigger pull thanks to excellent modeling and meaty sound design. Gunshots are loud and booming, to a degree that times where I've been caught off guard by them, they've made me jump out of my skin. Jesus Christ! Unlike SWAT 4, where accuracy was severely affected by even the slightest movement, Ready or Not lets you aim down sights, and as long as you aren't spraying on full auto, your shots will go where you want them to, as they should in the hands of a highly trained operator. But the quality shooting aside, I think it's the little mechanics on top of it that make this game so neat to me. Of course, you can lean around corners to minimize yourself as a target. Most guns have variable fire modes, even letting you put your weapon on safe to prevent an accidental discharge. And instead of having an ammo counter on the screen, you have to be conscious of how many rounds you've fired, performing a physical mag check to get an exact figure. There's also two different ways to reload, one that stores the used magazine on your person, and another that lets it fall to the ground for the benefit of a quicker changeout. These attentions to detail add so much, especially the reloading stuff. Instead of spamming it after every shot, which I tend to do in shooters, you have to pick the right time. It makes the act of swapping magazines a meaningful choice rather than a mindless input. Of course, what weapon you bring along isn't the only thing to consider. There are light and heavy armor types, with the increased protection giving you less slots for gear, tactical grenades, namely flashbangs, gas, and stingers, specialized equipment including pepper spray for uncooperative civvies, wedges for blocking off escape routes, and C2 charges that make quick work of doors. And then there's more sizable tools, like a mirror gun to check upcoming rooms with, a battering ram or breaching shotgun if lockpicking is just too subtle for you, and last but not least, a ballistic shield that offers substantial defense at the cost of slower movement and inability to perform most interactions when equipped. There's more than enough variety to let you change up your playstyle for multiple replays of each level, and while you can stick with a loadout if you prefer a particular weapon or squad role, constantly switching stuff out has definitely aided in keeping the gameplay loop fresh. There are currently 14 maps in Ready or Not, all of which can be played solo with AI teammates or in co-op with up to 4 others. The levels and their given scenarios offer a good range of variety. You'll kick in doors of a seedy drug den, stop a gas station robbery gone wrong, trade fire with extremists in a nightclub, clear multiple floors of a hospital, and uncover dark secrets in a flashy hillside manor, to name just some. These maps ooze with character, even the ones that would appear mundane on the surface. Outside all of the expected clutter, giving each space a genuine lived-in feel, there's excellent environmental storytelling for those that pay attention. You can piece together the relationships of a building's occupants, or path out the series of events that transpired before your team arrived. A jammed handgun laying next to a good Samaritan that tried to intervene. A survivalist compound with walls covered in formulas and blueprints. A family portrait with the father's face X'd out. Or the repetitive sound of cell phones ringing near bodies of loved ones that we'll never pick up. You won't notice most of these things immediately, given that you have armed thugs to worry about, but once you do, they stick with you. It's worth noting here that some of the subject matter in this game can be disturbing. Ready or Not isn't afraid to go to dark places, implying or outright showing some truly awful stuff. Like stuff I can't outright say without risking this video being deemed as harmful. But I immensely respect the devs for treating its players like adults. It doesn't sugarcoat, but it also doesn't glorify. The truth of the matter is, if a TAC team has been called to raid a specific location, things have already gone wrong, and in that context, these guys are likely to see some disturbing stuff. However, in the moment, they're professionals doing a job. They can't harp on it, and you don't have to either. The game never stops and forces you to stare at uncomfortable scenes. You're free to engage with it as much or as little as you want. Though, I will admit that some of my favorite moments playing Ready or Not with a group is hearing the reactions of new players that don't know what's coming.
I'm good.
That shock value will naturally wear off after a couple replays, although the tension never does. Each time you replay a level, the locations of most NPCs will be randomized, so you can't just assume a room is going to be empty, and people can and will roam around, so it's unwise to put your guard down even if you've checked every corner. A handful of the maps also contain tripwires, and which doors they're attached to isn't set in stone either, further disincentivizing a rushed approach. Remember that you're not meant to be Rambo. An ideal run-through of a level would see you taking everyone alive, though the enemy AI as it is currently makes this very difficult on all but the smallest maps. To give credit, they do have some really nifty behaviors that add unpredictability to standoffs. In certain environments, you'll see people hide under beds or inside closets. Bystanders will bait you into overreacting by reaching for a cell phone. Suspects will fake surrender before going for a concealed handgun or charging at you with a knife. Some will even play dead after being shot and, if not put in handcuffs, can get back up when you're not looking. On 2 occasions, I've even seen a criminal self-terminate rather than be taken alive, and both times it shocked me. I love all this stuff. There are more details that up the immersion, but in terms of accuracy and aggression, the AI still needs more tweaking. The game is aiming for a sense of realism, so I'd expect to get one shot every so often. Sometimes luck just isn't on your side. But these bastards can have superhuman reactions. This was also an issue with SWAT 4. A meth head with a handgun that has their back to me should not be able to John Wick my cerebral cortex. These guys also tend to lack any real preservation instinct. By that I mean that no matter how well you get the drop on them, yelling for them to put their hands up, they will always choose to go out in a blaze of glory. Unless you've done something to stun them first, like throwing a grenade or nailing them with a taser, they just don't surrender to your superior firepower. When you're going up against military-trained radicals, I get it, but everyone acts like this. I don't think every enemy should instantly give up, that'd be lame, but I do think the percentage chance of a surrender needs to be a bit higher, especially for your average small-time crook. Neither of these are deal breakers, since taking down threats is satisfying, but it does kinda go against the whole police sim thing. Because assailants might have an aimbot and are unlikely to back down, it's tempting to forego the risk and shoot before they have a chance to, and most players are going to give in to that temptation. Who could blame them? Aggressively dealing with every threat will impact your end mission rank, though. As an officer of the law, you're expected to follow the rules of engagement, only using force when absolutely necessary, only acting if someone poses a credible danger to you, a civilian, or one of your squad mates. As is also procedure, you need to perform mop-up duty as you go, calling in all casualties and arrests, and securing any weapons left littering the ground. These same systems were present in SWAT 4, and could be a source of frustration. Following the rules meant giving hostiles a chance to kill you, and you'd only be informed of alleged mistakes after the mission was completed, so you'd be penalized for a bad shoot, having no idea exactly when it happened. Plus, it always seemed like no matter how thorough you were, there was always one body or one firearm you missed somewhere along the way, and to maximize your score, you'd need to spend 10 minutes retracing your steps looking for the needle in the haystack. In Ready or Not, I feel like the system is more fair overall. It's helpful that you're told about point deductions after you report a body, so you can at least try to work out the game's logic. There are definitely still instances where I call BS on an unauthorized force penalty, but it doesn't happen as much. Reporting everything can still be a chore. It's easy to miss something in all the chaos, though if you really don't want to deal with the hassle, you can always skip it since the level ranking kinda doesn't matter. SWAT 4 would lock you off from seeing the next mission until you beat a minimum score requirement, so a bad ranking forced you to replay what you just did. In Ready or Not, a high score is essentially just positive reinforcement. I think it's ultimately more rewarding to play the game as efficiently as possible. That is how the devs intend you to do it, but you can be as sloppy as you want getting nothing but F ranks and still see all the content in the game. It's not what I recommend doing, but if you are more the fast and loose type, the option is there. This is a game clearly built around working with a squad, but if you're curious how Ready or Not does as a single-player experience, it's fine. It's not the best way to play by a long shot, but if you prefer going solo, the 4 computer-controlled teammates backing you up are okay. They'll automatically react to potential threats if encountered, but otherwise, they won't do anything unless you tell them to via a command menu. If you get killed, then the mission ends, so it's wise to send them into rooms ahead of you, and you can specify exactly how they do it each time. Once again, comparing to SWAT 4, where your squad mates could go from amazing dead shots 1 minute to brain-dead lemmings the next, the AI for your fellow officers in Ready or Not is more consistent, but not in a way that I'd call an improvement. I mean they're more middle of the road, generally competent without impressing or frustrating too much. It does take them a bit too long to perform actions. You can actually see them pause to think between steps. In some cases, my orders just didn't take, so I'd have to issue them again, and I think the command interface is a bit clunky compared to its inspiration's much snappier setup, but overall, they do their job decently enough. But if you really want to get the most out of your time taking down bad guys, get a few friends together. A good group will improve almost any activity, but this is especially true of Ready or Not. It absolutely shines as a co-op game, which isn't surprising given how much it incentivizes communication. I'd go as far as to say it's required, since good comms makes everyone more effective. Even if you're not being super serious about it, teamwork will just naturally happen. As the 5 of you file in through a door, each player will see where the guy ahead of them goes, and instinctually go in a different direction to maximize coverage. The game simply lends itself to that kind of innate cooperation. Successfully working as a unit is much more satisfying than going it alone. I don't even mind dying if I'm with others, since I think watching Ready or Not is just as fun since the tension of not knowing what's around the corner translates to the spectator view. It goes without saying that close friends are the ideal partners to have, but I've actually spent significantly more time playing with randoms in the game's official Discord. You're always rolling the dice when diving into the online pool, but my interactions with the Ready or Not community have overall been plenty of fun. In a game like this that asks for some level of restraint and patience, the majority of players that would actively seek out others to play with aren't looking to waste their time. That's not to say that everyone is, uber strict and by the book. I'd categorize most as casually tactical, with a simple, don't be an idiot rule. I've played with groups that try to speedrun maps or goof around with unpractical loadouts, and others that approach every single room with maximum caution, and I've enjoyed both. Fun should come first, and the majority of players that I've spent time with have had that same mindset. Lastly, I'll point out that Ready or Not has built-in mod support, which is always appreciated, even if I'm not the type to mess with mods often, and there's a ton of stuff to choose from. Doubling the squad limit so more people can scream at each other, new character models, a bunch of new guns and gun skins, voice line and music packs, gameplay features and overhauls to existing mechanics, even total AI reworks. There's a ton to customize if that's your thing, though the content that personally interests me are new maps to run. I was so happy to see that most of the levels from SWAT 4 have already been remade for Ready or Not, and to no one's shock, they play incredibly well. Original maps are more hit and miss, that's expected, but a few I've played are truly remarkable. Sanctum's Deceit is a mansion raid set during a rainstorm that is so damn impressive, I think the dev should pay its creator a fat check and put it in the game proper. However, as nice as all this is, the mod stuff is definitely the most early access piece of this game. The convenience of easy one-click downloads is nice, but a lot of the mods I tried just didn't work even after multiple attempts. Some might break existing equipment or mechanics, and a few will crash the game and make it unlaunchable until you go into the Steam folder and delete the offending file. As I understand it, most of these issues are specific to the built-in integration, and stuff will typically work fine if it's instead downloaded from third-party sites like mod.io and Nexus directly. I'm hoping this feature gets smoothed out, since being able to quickly install and uninstall new content from the main menu is great, but right now, use with caution. If you've been craving a return to tactical shooters, or have had your interest piqued by what you've seen here, I can't recommend Ready or Not enough. It is well worth its $40 asking price, especially if you can drag some friends along. Aside from the rare visual bug, ragdolls freaking out, which frankly I consider a feature, and some connection hiccups here and there that are probably more the fault of individuals' internet, Ready or Not has tons of polish and more than enough content to keep you busy, and it'll only keep growing from here. Several new maps have already been announced, and more modes are getting added, so unless developer Void Interactive pulls a Blizzard and royally drops the ball with future updates, this game should get bigger and better. And I really, really hope I don't end up eating those words. Thank you all for your patience the last few months. Leave a rating if you liked what you saw, comment on some of your most memorable Ready or Not moments, subscribe to the Critical Nobody channel for more, and seriously, watch out for tripwires. Tim?
I found out what tripwires are like.